What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grindline Podcast. Listening to episode 250, milestone episode 250. I am here tonight with Ryan and Tyler. How are you guys doing tonight?
I think I'd be on top of that one. That is quite. Is there going to be like a little explosion on the YouTube stream when you mentioned 250?
I
A
guess that might be
splurge
kind
of
of awkward, just like random explosion gifs. Like party poppers, like
little fire,
streamers
yeah,
will come out and confetti.
just shooting across the screen, come to the
Beautiful.
background.
Sure, I'll do something fancy, I guess.
Good. I hope so. I'm good. Here to talk hockey.
I'm fantastic. Can't complain too much. This story with Michigan and college football just doesn't seem to want to go away and just continues to get legs as time goes on. So I've been on Twitter a fuck ton over the last week or so, even more than usual.
Get off.
Because things just continue to drop, and it's just interesting.
And how much of it has been true?
Not much.
Exactly.
Not much.
Wait till, for one, anything to come out and then react to it. Because, hey, when the allegations are finally presented, now you've got a thing called facts.
So you agree with the process of not suspending anybody until they're proven, right?
You can't suspend anybody until anything's proven.
Yeah, that's
unless
what the Big
there's
Ten
something in the
wants,
background that were to come out stating like that there was direct knowledge of what was happening. The person that was already behind is gone. They're step one, so they more or less recused themselves anyways by resigning, apparently, which was probably, hey, you're going to resign or it's going to look even worse on you.
Folks, we are talking to the most reasonable Ohio State fan that we know.
There's no point to react to it until something actually comes out from either the NCAA or the Big Ten. It's literally all hearsay. Now, there might be some facts that are out there. I wouldn't doubt it. But right now, it's stupid. And anytime I see a comment on it, I try to mute it.
So have you muted me yet? Because I've been pretty...
No, you probably say words that I had muted, so I don't see it.
Great. Well, Tyler wallows in misery. Well, Tyler, how are you besides the Michigan stuff? Good? You're here for 2 weeks in a row, so that's impressive.
Doing good. Trying to get things together here. That was a fucking hell of a win on Saturday night. I was very happy to see that. Give Boston their first loss. Not to cut to conclusions, but I'm doing well. Glad to see that the Wings have kind of rebounded a little bit. But yeah.
Buddy, we're gonna work on your book of phrases. That's what we're gonna have to work on with you.
What conclusions are we cutting to?
We're gonna come to some conclusions tonight. So conclusion number one, the Florida Panthers game. So that's where we're gonna start off tonight. And for a game where literally nothing happened for most of the game, besides the one goal that God, you got to work on that glove. Because that puck needed to be caught, went right over Reimer.
Like the Discord comments calling for the glove change.
Glove replacement, because it went, Reimer bounced right off his glove, onto his back, into the net. That was
a shell goal if I've ever seen one.
And it was like a lucky bounce. Brutal. And the problem, again, for that game, for me, was the Red Wings did not start on time. The first period, they've got the first period slow game, which is killing them. And then they have to double speed in the second and the third to catch up, overcome, and eventually win in several cases. But this game, they came out flat. They were constantly chasing. Your worst players this game, according to Hockey Stat Cards, were Jake Wallman and Mo Seider. The worst players on the ice. And when your top D pair are the worst players on the ice for that game, that is not going to be a productive game for you. Your best player, again, thanks Toronto for as much as you bitched about him, Justin Holl, has looked, dare I say, great this season. I mean, I keep leaning on like Justin Holl's looked very good in many games, and I hesitate to use the word great because I feel like as soon as I say great, he's just going to trip over himself and fall into oblivion. But he's looked very good.
He's done what has been asked of him.
He's looked good, like good. To where you thought we were getting literally the worst player on the face of the planet when we signed him. So your top two players in the Florida game, actually top three, I'll give you Justin Holl, David Perron, Daniel Sprong. David Perron having a comeback period here after a slow start. So I guess what were your takeaways from the Florida game besides it just being overall decently lazy?
I was mad at that game because it was very much a continuation of what we had seen as of late, really the last week of games. They started slow, like you said, and then there wasn't really any attempt, it seemed like, to really push forward. Now, granted, the second it was a 1-0 game up until the empty netter by Lundell. And again, Detroit was out there facing one of the best goalies in all of hockey, and Sergei Bobrovsky, who, for all intents and purposes, bodied us again, as he seems to like to do. But I don't know. To me, it was just they were there. Much of what I saw was a repeat of the week prior, where they were just one guy would go into a board battle. You'd have two other guys waiting there, seeing what would happen. And the way that, and we talked about it even going into that game last week, is that special teams were going to be critical to take against or to going into this game, because power play for Florida has not been good and their PK has been just as bad. And what did we not do? Capitalize on any power plays. And that killed us overall, I think. And because we knew it as a whole, they've got some big injuries on the back end, but still defensively, they're a well-coached team. And we saw the pressure that they brought. Now, I'm not discrediting anything that Florida did in that game, but it was a night and day difference between the pressure we saw from Detroit versus Boston after the first 10 minutes versus what we saw with Florida. Florida stymied. I mean, it seems when Detroit gets high pressure teams so far, it seems kind of like they almost fold, which is debatable to an extent because of how Boston was, and we'll talk about that. But as a whole, they didn't have an edge. They weren't skating well, and it ultimately killed them. I mean, Bob made some good saves, but I didn't think that he did anything to go out of his way of being really challenged.
No, and I think we left episode 249 by saying if we out defense and out goaltend them, we should win because of how our offense has been going. And the offense, like you said, no aggression, no push, no sense of urgency. And when they float like that and if they play equal measure hockey, they're not going to win, because if you equaled the measure of the Florida Panthers, you know what else the Florida Panthers didn't do that game? Score, besides a fluky goal and an empty netter. So they needed to push, and there was no push. And that, I think, is what frustrated me the most. Is I started out, I think, on Twitter saying, like, again, another slow first. And when the slow firsts happen and you don't push for the rest of the game, you lose more nights than you don't.
Yeah, you're right. And I'll tell you one thing right now. That was one of the worst, most least inspiring efforts, I thought, of the season so far. Maybe even of the last two seasons. It just was not good from start to finish. I think they went 0 for 5 on the power play. This power play that has been so good for the Red Wings this year so far went 0 for 5 and did not generate a whole lot of opportunities. It's one of those games where I guess you throw it out, but at the same time, you don't want to throw it out because it's what you don't want to do. This is what you don't want to do. And again, they've been a team that's been competitive and obviously at the top, the top half of the Eastern Conference right now. But at the end of the day, you can't have uninspiring efforts like this, 2 out of 3 nights and stuff like that. You need to be much better than they were. You need to have way more than 22 shots on net. I know shots on net isn't everything, but certainly from what I can remember, they didn't have a whole lot of opportunities. Yeah, I know you said Bobrovsky made 22 saves, but it's not like he made 40 saves. He made 22 saves, and the Panthers only had 27 shots on net. Overall, not a good game. Glad to see that, there was a little bit more positivity going into the other game, which we'll talk about. But yeah, no, not a good game. The Reimer's got to have that Lorentz shot. And then obviously the empty net is what it is, but that game could have been a lot worse, I think, in terms of the score, because I thought they were outplayed most of that game.
Yeah, I agree. And if you even go look at like you're talking about shot count, but not just like shots on net. If you look at Corsi, and for the people who are relatively new to advanced stats, Corsi 4 percentage basically is an evaluation of puck possession. It's the player with Corsi 4 percentage are generally between 45 and 55. Corsi 4 percentage is calculated as the sum of shots on goal. So that's missed shots and block shots over the shots against, missed shots against, and block shots against at equal strength. So that's basically showing here is you're controlling the puck more. If the higher a player's Corsi 4 percentages is, the more they control the puck. Your top player for Corsi that game, Austin Czarnik. followed by Alex DeBrincat, Dylan Larkin, Justin Holl, Daniel Sprong, Shane Gostisbehere. But the only people above 50% Corsi for were Larkin, DeBrincat, and Zarnik. And that just means you were being outplayed. They were shooting more. They were taking more chances, even if it didn't count as a shot on goal because it didn't make it to the goalie. It was still a shot. Someone was still shooting toward the net. So when 90% of your team is below 50% Corsi, it's a bad night. And again, if you bump those numbers up, if you take more chances, if you get it more pressure, if you play more aggressively like they did in Boston, you're going to come out generally with a better outcome. So disappointing game to drop that one. Overreactions on Twitter are phenomenal right now. 11 games in and they're like, this team's pathetic. They'll never make the playoffs. It's like, come on, guys. Like,
at least I'm keeping mine game specific.
Chill out. Like, game to game, we can't fluctuate emotionally. Like, so big of a fluctuation in emotion.
I'm sorry, but until you've actually been eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs in March or February or whenever it is, you're still in it. Because if you remember the Blues from 2019, I know this Red Wings team is probably not the Blues from 2019. They're a good team, right? I mean, they've shown so far through 11 games that they're a pretty good team. So we'll see where it goes from there. But until you're eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs, I don't want to fucking hear that, oh, they're out of it, this, that, and the other thing. And honestly, if they can play good for another 5 to 7 games and they'll get to that mark of the American Thanksgiving and them being in the playoffs, I think it's 85% of teams that are in the playoffs at American Thanksgiving make the playoffs. So they'll have reached that threshold for, I think, only the second time since this rebuild started. So
I think the most recent one I saw was 60% of teams that are in a playoff position on November 1st make the playoffs.
Yeah, I didn't see that one. It was like 60 or 66 or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, Elliot Friedman said something about that, and then he brought up the American Thanksgiving one, which has always historically been the first measuring stick of if you're a playoff team or not. And I mean, they got some tough games coming up, so we'll talk about those, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, right now, for someone to say that they're not going to make the playoffs is absolute bull.
And I think that the saving grace was also that when we lost to the Panthers, a lot of the teams in our division that we needed to lose also
everyone lost.
Yeah, so they did. Everyone besides Tampa, I think it was. So they didn't really gain any ground on us except for Tampa. And
Detroit held down the second spot. And
that's what we needed to do. We just we're like, okay, we lost, but if everyone else can also lose, that will do us a big favor. And they did, which was great. But then we went on to Boston. And this game
at home, not at
was
Boston.
I'm going to tell you, was their best game all season. This
outside
game,
the first 10 minutes, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was, again, the Red Wings win 5-4. Everyone knows that. Huge game from JT Compher. Huge game from David Perron. Huge game from Andrew Kopp. Larkin was buzzing. Lucas Raymond was buzzing. DeBrincat was buzzing. Everyone was on besides Michael Rasmussen, but we'll get to that in a minute. It's the game you needed. I said we needed to go into Boston, and the biggest thing you need to do is you need to match their aggression. And I think that was one of the best things they did that night was match the aggression of the Boston Bruins and out-aggression them. If that's a thing, out-aggression them, be over-aggressive.
I'll give it to you.
And there were some bad penalties, not too great. The end of the game was an absolute shit show, but it was a great game, and it's what you needed them to do after a loss like they had where they came out flat, was come out heavy and just beat the Bruins at their own game. Because if you notice what the Boston Bruins do and the reason they win, they are 100% on all the time. And the second you mess up, they're going to catch you. And that is where there's zero, when you play a team that are coached like the Bruins, there's zero room for error. And that's why they're winning so much right now, minus insanely stellar goaltending. But they were able to break Linus Ullmark and come out with a victory in regulation, handing the Boston Bruins their first regulation loss of the season. And I was talking to my wife, I'm like, how many days of like, no one's allowed to make fun of us does that get us? We're the first team to give Boston a regulation loss this season. It's got to be until at least another team beats them in regulation, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's going to be appropriate. No, to your point, Boston is a team that is 100% on you, and they skate hard. Their forecheck, the fact that Detroit was able to beat the forecheck on a couple of occasions, especially the Larkin goal, that arguably there could have been a penalty on DeBrincat, but I think because of the way they were going for the battle, there wasn't one called, which let Raymond pick it up out of their zone and then pushed up to Larkin, who had to me, it reminded me of the Nyquist goal, ironically enough, against Boston back in 2014. Also a third goal of the game, no less, where Nyquist beat the defenses. It was a game that I was at last time I had season tickets, and it was just a beautiful thing. He got past Chara, scored, place went nuts.
We talked about this the last time I was in Michigan, me and Ryan.
Yeah, we watched that video. Larkin finished the shift with a goal after a minute and 24-second shift.
Dude was gassed, and he doesn't feel too great right now.
No, he took an ass beating in that game. But that right there, I think, spoke to what Detroit was willing to do to make sure that they could compete in that game. Necessarily, I mean, obviously, it was at a point where you could have still went one way or the other. It was a 3-3 game. But when Detroit, even though that Boston pushed as hard as they did in terms of their forecheck and the way that they skated, Detroit matched it and then some. And I think, honestly, I was talking to my dad about this, that affected Boston. They were getting punched right back in the teeth because a bit of a different game than when Detroit was in Boston, last week, 2 weeks ago.
That was uninspiring as well. If that Florida game didn't happen, that was the most uninspiring effort of the season.
Yeah. So Detroit flipped it on its head, and they brought it right back to them. And Boston didn't know how to respond. And when Detroit's playing like that, they can absolutely beat anyone in the league. And they just showed it with one of the top teams right there.
Yeah, I'll say one thing too, like that Boston game, getting down 2-0, obviously you don't want to do that, but I never really had a doubt that even when they were down 2-0, that they were just going to roll over and die, especially when Raymond scored that goal to make it 2-1. I'm like, all right, here we go, game on, and then Wallman scores on the power play. That was an absolute rip by Wallman.
Howitzer.
Yeah, that was an absolute fucking cannon. And then Coyle scores to make it 3-2, and you're like, oh shit, here we go. And then Larkin blows by. Who was it? Who was the defenseman that he blew by?
Witherspoon is who he beat around the edge.
Yeah, he blew by Witherspoon like he was standing still. And he finishes, and then Perron pots one, Kopp pots one, and Pasternak gets that goal on the power play. An absolute garbage call, by the way.
Don't stop yourself for staying on side anymore, folks. That's bad.
But I'll tell you one thing right now. I was glad to see DeBrincat get on the board, albeit with an assist. I was glad to see he snapped his point drought. I think it was 3 or 4 games there that he hadn't had a point. Didn't mean he didn't look dangerous in some of those games, but yeah, I think overall it was good to see them win. And I'll tell you one thing right now, for some of these assholes that go on these message boards and Twitter and what have you, that say that Dylan Larkin didn't deserve that extension and didn't deserve to be the captain. There's one fucking, pin in that he should be the captain. That's the type of game where you watch that game and you're like, that's the captain. That's why he's the captain. And he's going to be there for a long time, and that's why. And you know what? It was a marquee game for him. I really thought that was, I'm not going to say one of his best games as a Detroit Red Wing, but certainly one of the best game that he's had all season, I thought.
Yeah, that's why he got the day off. He had to carry the team. His back hurts a little bit. But another guy that was really on, Lucas Raymond in the past few games has just been electric. So if you go back to the last game against Boston, the loss, Lucas Raymond had 15 minutes and 51 seconds of ice time. The game against the Islanders, his ice time went up to 16:33. Against Florida, he had 16:27. This win against Boston, 20 minutes and 4 seconds of ice time for Lucas Raymond. And the kid was on fire. He had 2 hits. He was out there, and again, he scored a beautiful. Lucas Raymond, when he's scoring, is like the best thing ever, because his reaction when the goal goes in the net, it's like a kid in a fucking candy store. It's the best thing you'll ever see. But he's I mean, slowly people will say that he had a sophomore slump, which he had a little bit of a down year last year, but by no means was it like a horrible year for Lucas Raymond. And you can see now that he's using his size. He's not afraid to go to the corners. He's not afraid to hit people. He's not afraid to launch people into benches, but he's also putting the puck in the net now, and he's getting points. And Lucas Raymond, I think, has been one of the more impressive players so far this season. And it's just the production is what he has to show for it.
You can tell with Lucas Raymond that there is a renewed drive and excitement for this season. Really, that top line, we've talked about it before, the emotion that Larkin is showing in particular, and what him, Cat, and Raymond have been doing so far to this point in the season is beautiful. Like, I remember how much we were gushing over Larkin, Mantha, Bertuzzi a couple years ago before they all decided to get broken and fall apart. Like, they had arguably a similar start. It wasn't like this, though. And it just speaks to what they've built for this roster in general, but also to how when you have a Raymond now stepping up to what you would expect. He's at 10 points in 12 games played. You've got a DeBrincat who is putting the puck in the net at will. His shooting percentages dropped to getting more in line with reality at 21.4%. And then you've got a Dylan Larkin now at 17 points through 12 games, who's shooting at a 12% rate, which is a little bit up from what we're typically seeing from him. Those are all very important factors. And Raymond's shooting at a 14.8% clip, almost 15%. If that's what you're going to have continuously from your top line the rest of the year, you've got two 80-plus point players, if not two guys pushing 90. You've got Mo Sider, who we haven't even really talked about, who's got 11 points through 12 games at almost a point per game right now, as more of your typical defensive two-way defenseman. And then you got Lucas Raymond 10 through 12. Like, then that's not even touching the rest of the roster where we've got the secondary scoring and everything else going on. So the way that things are coming together early is what we can only hope for post-trade deadline. Because if we have this type of play being maintained up to the deadline, what's going to happen? That's going to be the weird, I don't know what to do with my hands moment that we're going to be in. And we're going to be going back to hopefully not trading for some 36-year-old for a first-round pick of the Ken Holland days, but that you could see an impactful move being made to hopefully maybe guide this team into the playoffs. Or you maybe drop off some dead weight, and maybe we see a guy like Marco Casper getting brought in to be your trade dedeadline acquisition. Simon Edvinsson, one of these younger guys that somebody gets brought out, sent out to make room for a good pick. You never know. It could be a weird situation that we could find ourselves in if he keeps going this way.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting about that too is, like, you make the point of, like, okay, we're not going to go trade for a 36-year-old or a 35-year-old as a rental, as a first-round pick. I think we've learned Steve Yzerman's smart enough to not do that unless you're one piece away from winning the Stanley Cup. And we need to trade for Martin St. Louis, and I'm obviously going back in the days, but you have this roster and you have a player of the caliber of, say, Patrice Bergeron, for argument's sake, or John Tavares, say, for argument's sake, and we just need that guy, and that guy's going to put us over the top, or X goal scorer.
What if that guy's Steven Stamkos, Tyler?
Yeah, potentially, and that's that. I'm not saying that specifically.
Steven Stamkos for $3 million a year,
but that's the only time that trading for a 34-year-old, 35-year-old who is not under contract and is going to be, a rental essentially.
Brett Hall.
That's when that's okay at that point. But we're not at that point yet. We're not even close to that point yet. I don't even know that Steve Yzerman would deal a first-round pick yet. Maybe. It depends on who's available. You know what I mean?
We all just did the gif of the no. Well,
we might have to talk about that after the commercial break.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and Ryan, you mentioned secondary scoring, and I think this is a game where it really came into play too. Like, you had David Perron had 3 points. It was the second game in a row where David Perron had a good game, and that was a good game for David Perron.
He's given us a roller coaster of emotions, but when he's turned it on, it's beautiful.
He's redeeming himself slightly, but you also had JT Compher with 2 assists. You had Andrew Kopp with a goal. You had Jeff Petrie with an assist. You had Daniel Sprong with an assist. You had guys with points that are not named Larkin, DeBrincat, Raymond, which is you're going to, on a nightly basis, you're going to need stuff like that. Joe Veleno's cooled down, which is okay for now, but you need guys off that top line to be able to pick up the slack. But then this is also a game where special teams started working again, which is where you needed to, again, pick it up from the Florida team where special teams was absolutely dead. Well, power play was absolutely dead during the Florida game, but this was a game where we brought it back up. And that was an important part of the game.
Something I just realized from that game as well, Justin Hall only saw 10 minutes ice time. Now, granted, they went with 7 defensemen, but I was not expecting that. And Olimata only had 13. But then you've got Jeff Petrie, almost 18:45, almost in 19 minutes. I mean, you had only 2 defensemen, which is no surprise in a way. Actually, take that back. Only 1 defenseman over 20 minutes of time on ice, which I get it. There's 7 defensemen out there, but I guess for the way Hull's been playing, I think overall has been pretty damn sound. I mean, I think the biggest oh no moments from that game were Ali Mata and Ben Sherratt both leaving Hull in no man's land on 2 separate occasions that both led to a goal.
Yeah, the Ben Sherratt chasing a guy to the net, letting him walk right in and score was not great.
That one, and then Mata almost repeated it to a T on the Coyle backdoor tap-in goal.
The other section where you kind of see it pick up the reverse of the Florida game is the Corsi 4. So your top Corsi 4 player on the team during the Boston game, even with his 7 minutes or 10 minutes of ice time, was Justin Holl. 73.7% Corsi 4 at 5-on-5. Oli Mata with 71.4. Jake Wallman with 71.4. Alex DeBrincat with a nice 69.4. There were only...
Are you looking at 5-on-5 or what?
5-on-5 Corsi 4 percentage, yeah. There were only 3 players on the Red Wings below 50% Corsi 4 during that game. Where if you look at the Bruins Corsi 4, it looks like the Red Wings during the Panthers game is what it looks like. You only had 4 guys on the Bruins above 50%, and one of them was not David Pastrnak. So that's... Crazy. Your shooter, your scorer, your guy you're relying on offense had a Corsi 4 percentage of below 50.
And speaking of the Pastrnak piece, like you mentioned his Corsi being below 50, and I absolutely love the way Detroit played him defensively. If it wasn't for Rasmussen's stick getting slashed out of his hand then shortly after Pastrnak scoring that power play goal in the third period, I don't think he has a goal this night. Detroit suffocated him, and really they did this to the entire team. They were, for more often than not, they were in lanes trying to block shots, getting sticks on shots. Yes, they still had high danger opportunities, but that's what's going to happen from a good team. But Detroit, for the most part, limited those opportunities, and obviously they helped that they scored more goals because Boston still managed to pot 4 of them against Detroit, but it wasn't for a lack of effort. And Pastrnak in particular, though, when Mo had a chance, he was putting a body on him. When Mo had a chance to really put a body on anyone, he was doing it, especially when it came to his board play. Honestly, I thought that was one of his more complete games that night.
A lot of my people that I know, because I live in Boston, close to the Bruins, will always say this about David Pastrnak. Great hockey player, good goal scorer, good offensive player. When it comes to playing defense or being tough, Pasta's not the guy, sure. And if you want to get him off his game, you do exactly what Ryan said. You put a body on him every time he's got the puck. Hell, every time he doesn't have the puck, get in his way, make it hard on him. And honestly, that's how you got to play players like that. And they got to get used to playing players like that, because you're going to see it with Nikita Kucherov with Tampa. You're going to see it with a guy like Panarin tomorrow against the Rangers. There's a lot of players. Zibanejad's another guy, but he's a little bit tougher. But I guess Panarin and Pastrnak would probably be a good little, comparison when it comes to players that don't like to play through contact like that. So yeah, you got to make it hurt. And I'm not saying you got to actually hurt the player, but make them feel it. Make them think twice when they try to make a second move at the blue line or trying to get into the zone. Make them think twice.
Not even necessarily making them feel it. It's just playing them difficult and being aggressive on them. Like, yeah, Mo, like I said, there's one particular I remember in the corner, and he did this to several people. He just bodied him. But outside of that, it was the way that they utilized their sticks to just upset a scoring chance. And like I said, if it wasn't for, I think it was frickin' Coyle or Zaka slashing the stick out of Rasmussen's hands, I don't think Pastrnak gets that power play goal.
Yeah,
because
with no call.
No, direct line to the official. Raz hands go up in the air as the stick got literally smashed out of it to the ice. Because if he reaches out right there, that puck's going into the stands or the netting, I should say. But no, I think they played him great, and you have to. Now, this I will say though, that Poitras or however you say it, that kid is good. He is
Bally
smooth.
Poitras kid.
He was fun to watch for being a young player. Like I like the move that he made on Husso that was impressive.
Yeah, that was where Ben Sherratt let him walk right in on goal. That was beautiful. Right.
I thought that, like, you know, when people were talking about it, because, you know, people on the radio here are just like, they're just looking for the next Bergeron, the next Krejci, the next, you know, great Bruins player. And like, they were talking about this guy in preseason, like, wow, this guy's going to be a really good player. I'm like, what? It's according to what? And then I looked at the stats of him in, I think it was the OHL or one of the leagues up in Canada. And he lit it up there. And I guess he was one of those players that didn't play 1 year because of the COVID situation and then played half the season because of the other one. So, like, he's kind of a raw player. But the fact that he made it out of training camp and he's playing the way he is, yeah, he's a hell of a player. I agree with you.
I agree. But the Boston game was phenomenal. And we'll take the win and we'll give them their first regulation loss. We'll take all the fanfare that comes with it. No one can give a shit, I think, for at least a week. So we will reserve all of that. But what we're going to do real quick is we're going to go to break, but we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. The NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this October. I mean, the Lions did just lose, so maybe cool it on them, but they're bound to pick it up, right? Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code THPN, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football. Terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions. Terms and responsible gaming resources. You know that the second October is over and November hits, the holiday season gets into full swing. We take down the pumpkins, break out the Mariah Carey, and do a lot of shopping. It may be too early to start decorating for the holidays, but it's never too early to start your holiday shopping. Why not take care of it now before the crowds and packed calendars make shopping a total nightmare, especially when you can get some of the best deals of the season well before Black Friday. You can shop Raycon products right now and save up to 50% because their early Black Friday sale is going on now. You've heard me talk about Raycon products before, how their audio products provide great sound quality and battery life, and that they're moving into the home space with things like air purifiers and water purifiers. But Raycon first made a name for themselves in the audio space with products like their everyday earbuds, known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features like 32-hour battery life and a perfect in-ear fit for all-day wear and lasting comfort. And this past year, they expanded their entire business with the introduction of Raycon Home and Raycon Power Tech. Their faucet filter ultra filters the water in your tap against chlorine and heavy metals. It's a must-have for ensuring the water you use to wash your face and brush your teeth is, actually clean. Raycon is known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features at half the price of other premium tech brands. It's no wonder their products have racked up tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. To get everyone in the holiday shopping spirit a bit early, Raycon is currently offering 20% off everything on their site with select products up to 50% off. So beat the crowds and save now. Trust me, you do not want to miss out on Raycon's early Black Friday sale. Hurry now to buyraycon.com/THPN to get 20 to 50% off site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/THPN to score up to 50% off Raycon products. buyraycon.com/THPN. And we're back. And we have a bigger issue than the Detroit Red Wings in Detroit for once. And it just happens to be Bally Sports Detroit. And whatever kind
worthless.
tire fire has been happening over there. So all of Hockeytown and a lot of the Pistons audience too was in a huge uproar because for 1 week, anyone who was trying to access the game on a computer or a tablet or a cell phone and anything other than cable was not able to watch the Red Wings game due to a Bally Sports outage. And it's more like Bally didn't pay their bill or they updated their app.
Yeah, they changed all the freaking UI.
They broke
and managed to break everything. Like, that is coding in fucking IT 101. You test it, you test it, you test it. You test it with outside, you test it internally. You do all these things to make sure it's not broken, because coding is finicky like that. You got to do it. Go through QA processes. It's not that hard in theory, but apparently Bally, in all their grand wisdom, and with already having the shit show of bankruptcy above their head, then decided to go and pull this and make it even worse. I just don't understand it. And I missed plenty of hockey because if you lived local to the Wings viewing area, you were completely blacked out unless you did, like Greg said, had cable. And I will be probably switching back to cable here in the near future because of it.
No, I just get a VPN and ESPN Plus. I can watch whatever game I want because I just change my location to somewhere else.
Means I got to use it through my laptop, and I don't feel like having to hold that thing all over the place.
Yeah, the VPN thing doesn't work on phones because they actually use GPS location on phones for ESPN. But on Fire Stick, it works perfectly. So what they did is on November 2nd, Bally put out a tweet saying we've been notified there's streaming issues with the app. The operations team is working to resolve this as quickly as we can to get you back to the game. And if as quickly as you can is a week, there's a big problem with your operations team, because I'm assuming most of them don't exist anymore because of the bankruptcy. But I mean, this is a complete mismanagement. And I guess they're refunding people for like a week of service or something.
Cool. You're still a ripoff.
Yeah, I think it needs to go back to, we need to have a local channel that is not cable based for hockey, I think is what needs to happen.
Well, wasn't UPN and Pass and all those, they were still cable, right? No, that was still...
No, UPN's a local channel.
I think personally, it's ridiculous, frankly. I know everyone wants to go to streaming, or, a lot of the younger people and people want to go to streaming. And I'm with Ryan. I like cable. I would prefer to have cable. I have cable here where I'm at right now.
Going back to it, absolutely.
It's better. You can change the channel. You can, you don't have issues with buffering. I don't have issues here because I do stream like the Wings games on ESPN Plus because I'm in the Boston area. But at the end of the day, it's like, can we just get to a point either where we're going back to cable, or we have some sort of middle ground between cable and streaming, or the cable companies have streaming options that you can watch sports with, or something like that, where it's like you have Spectrum and you can pick, ESPN, Fox, FS1, Bally Sports, or whatever it's going to be.
They do that in certain companies. They bundle these sport packages together, but then they'll get you, and you'll have like an outlier with NHL Network. You still have to upgrade one more tier to get all those extra premium channels.
Right, but what I'm saying is, can we get to a point,
a la carte option?
Maybe an a la carte option, or just like I don't need to have the cable box. If I want to stream, I can stream, and you don't have to pay for the cable boxes. But it's the company. I'm surprised they haven't done this yet by now. I know DirecTV has their DirecTV stream, but I'm talking about like the Spectrums and the AT&Ts. Do they have an option where you
AT&T is DirecTV?
All of them do. They all have streaming options. The only problem is with, especially with Comcast, if you're outside of your house, if you're not on your Wi-Fi, you can't stream it.
Yeah,
you must be on your own Wi-Fi to stream sports.
That's where you have your cable login with these apps if you're not home.
You can't do it inside like Comcast's app. Like if I go to the Xfinity Stream app, if I've got Xfinity cable, I can't watch Bally Sports. And now Bally's app is out for a week and I can't watch it anyway.
Right, because you have Bally running these things now where they're saying, if you're in your house, you can use this. If not, you have to use our app. Why can't you just use the Xfinity app or whatever app to access NHL Network outside your home?
You're old man yelling at a cloud right now, Tyler.
I understand, but
You're missing what you can actually do with it. Like the whole point of having the cable at home is it's for your home. If you have a cable package and you leave your home, all you have to do is log into these particular apps and you have free reign at everything because you're
right.
logged with your cable provider. It doesn't matter where you're at that point. And if you're not watching it at home
Except for
anyways,
NHL Network.
yeah, that's the only weird one.
Yeah, NHL Network doesn't have their
But I
own
mean,
thing.
if you're not
Why?
at your home anyways, why does it matter if you're having to use an app because you're not at home? If you're at home and you're using cable, and who cares?
It's just having to switch between multiple apps for stuff where you could literally just put everything in one and it would be fine.
The NHL app used to be fantastic. You could watch everything, even the NHL Network games, believe it or not, you used to be able to watch on the NHL app after a couple of years of bullshit of them not giving you the NHL Network games. Well, now ESPN Plus takes over and you still can't watch the NHL Network games on things. So, you know what? Again.
Well, Bally sent out an email saying that it encountered issues they didn't anticipate while instituting some new updates to the app, which means they didn't test their app before launching their app. And then they did not roll it back so that everything worked. They continued to struggle for a week to try to fix what was messed up. It says, saying we're sorry is not enough. We owe it to you to acknowledge our failures and try to make it up. If you're willing, stay, is what they put. And that is just the saddest response
Tampa
from a
Bay
company
Lightning.
who just needs to go out of business as fast as possible and just is not going to do it. Because to many people's disbelief, bankruptcy doesn't mean your business goes away. It just means you have to reorganize your banking stuff and you can stay in business. So it sucks. And a bunch of people were pissed. We got a lot of hits on play-by-play on Twitter because people couldn't watch the game. So that helped. But it sucks for everyone who had an outage. But the last thing we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to do a look forward at the New York Rangers game. We do play the Rangers tomorrow, which is the 7th, which will be probably when you're listening to this or after. So we may have already won and or lost to the Rangers. Currently, it's like Schrodinger's hockey game. We're both winners and losers during this game. But the big news for this game is Robbie Fabry will make his return to the lineup against the New York Rangers, which is a welcome addition. Like I said, offense for offense's sake, for depth scoring, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm going to miss this game. I'll be at freaking softball stuff.
Oh, that sucks. But I guess what's the, I'm going to set the over-under for games before Robbie Fabry gets injured again at 4. What are you taking?
I mean, it's a different injury than a lower body thing. So I'm going with the over.
I'm going to say under.
Tyler's like two games and Fabry's out again.
Every other time he's returned from an injury, it's been typically for an extended period of time. So
yeah, make no mistake. I'm not wishing Robbie Fabry to get hurt again. It's just, you know what, when you've been what you've been over the last couple of years, you know, it's kind of what you just come to expect. So
what did I say he was at? Like 60s, played 60, like 5% of the games since coming to Detroit.
Yeah, which is not a lot.
I'm excited for him to come back. I think he's going to bring it but is he going to be able to play the style of game that we would expect? Because he is an aggressive guy. He's not afraid to throw the body around. And is that going to work? I mean, we're going to need it against a team like the Rangers because, for one, they're going to hit you. And two, they are going to come after you hard like Boston does offensively. But I think also their defense is one to be reckoned with as well.
I guess the upside is in the one game Robbie Fabry has played this season, he did score a goal. So there's that. I mean, he's 1 for 1. So if we can keep that train rolling, there's some more offense there. But I'm going to pull up the JFresh team comparison cards. Again, the Detroit Red Wings rank 8th for 5v5 goals for, is where the Rangers rank 25th. 5v5 expected goals for, again, the Wings are not expected to get that many goals. We rank 26th, but the Rangers rank 30th. At 5v5 Corsi for, Red Wings rank 21st, where the Rangers rank 30th. The Rangers have more power play goals than us. They rank 4th and we rank 6th. And finishing, the Red Wings have ranked third in the league for finishing, where the Rangers rank ninth. Where we are going to, I mean, it looks like the matchup is pretty favorable for us. But the last time I said that was the Panthers game, and we just came out treading water from the very beginning. So again, if we play our game and we pick up the offense and start at puck drop and carry it through, we have a good shot against this Rangers team. It's just the whole starting on time thing has been the crux for the team since the 6th game of the season on. And it's where they really, if they can button it up, they're a more powerful team, and they can beat, I feel like they could beat any team in the league if they just start on time.
Yeah, this one scares me. And again, I'm going to look at special teams. They're one of the couple teams ahead of Detroit in power play percentages. They've got a 31% clip right now. And when you've got guys like Zibanejad, Kreider, and Panarin out there, it's terrifying. I don't know what they got going on. Is Trouba bumped up onto their power play right now with Fox out, or is it Keandre Miller? I don't even know what their power play setup is.
I don't know. I'd have to check daily face-off.
Yeah, but that's a team you cannot take penalties against, and they will piss you off enough that they're going to draw them. And it's going to come down to their goaltending, I think, as well. And what do they have as their set starter?
Their first power play unit
is right now, and that
their first power play unit is Kreider, Trocheck, Panarin, Zibanejad, Gustafsson.
Okay.
Their second power play unit is Will Kyle, Blake Wheeler, Capocacco, Keandre Miller, and Lafreniere. Trouba's not even on their power play.
So, I mean, it helps that they don't have Hedl and Fox, but Shesterkin, I think, is rumored to potentially be back tomorrow night, or at least this week. So that could be rough. Not having Adam Fox in the lineup definitely helps Detroit. But again, it's like Florida. They've got the structure and the team to give you headaches inside and out, whether it's the front off their forecheck or if they're coming back the other way, and they've got a great breakout. And they're a team that I have always liked, and I think I talked pretty highly of them in the offseason as well, as a team that could be right up there with the Devils for pushing for the Eastern Conference title. So I don't know. This one I think is a coin flip, and Detroit, for whatever reason, doesn't always seem to play that great at the Rangers. So if they don't come out fast, finishing kind of how they did starting how they finished against Boston. There we go. I think that's going to really kind of hurt them.
We usually get a good goaltending performance when we play at New York, though. And I know it kind of goes back to Jimmy Howard, and that was the team he grew up cheering for, Mike Richter, all that. But I feel like the Wings always seem to play pretty well in New York against the Rangers. They don't always win, but it's usually a pretty close game. I think a lot of the games that they played over the last couple of years have been close games. Even going back to, when we were playoff teams, obviously not as relevant. But that first power play unit for the Rangers, I mean, is as good as it gets, especially if you have Fox out there. Take Fox out or take Gustafsson out for Fox. Obviously, Fox is going to be out for a while. I think at least 10 games, it said 26 days, I believe, something like that. But yeah, I mean, they have danger all over there. Trocheck's a good player. Zibanejad, obviously a good player. Kreider can put it in the net. And then obviously you have Panarin on that left flank or that right flank, who, we talked about Pasternak earlier. He's the Pasternak on that team. He can fire away, as can Zibanejad. So definitely going to be paramount to stay out of the box in this game. The Rangers are one of those teams that if you take penalties, they're going to make you pay all night long. And I mean, that's just kind of where it's at in terms of that. But the Wings just need to be consistent. They need to go in there. And again, we talked about making it hurt and making them your physical presence known. They need to do that in this game too. And then when they do have penalties, you got to kill those off. Their penalty kill, from what I've seen, I mean, obviously Florida was over, Florida was 0 for 5. What was Boston? I know they had a power play goal in there at one point, but overall, you gotta come out strong in this game, because slow starts are going to kill you against teams like this.
Yeah, I think it also depends on who they play on goal. Jonathan Quick, man, 4 games played, has a goals against average of 1.42 and a save percentage of 948. I mean, that's again, it's only 4 games, but that's pretty insane. He got hung out to dry their last game, though. I mean, someone said he experienced the Rangers defense last game, and he said someone else said he'd start shopping for a cardiologist because they're going to give him a heart attack. I mean, how old's Jonathan Quick now? Jonathan Quick is 37 years old.
Didn't say he's up there. That's a year older than me, but.
And he's, I mean, right now playing out of his mind, playing really good hockey. So you might catch a hot goaltender. That, again, could be a problem for the Red Wings. But let's hope we get back to earth Jonathan Quick. And we can get a couple early goals. I think if we start on time, like I said, and get a quick goal or two, and just play as aggressive as we can play, I think the Red Wings should be able to pull this one out. So I am going to say, let's say 3-2 Wings.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm looking at the game log right now for the Rangers. They've allowed 3 goals before, but you need to score 4 at least to win. I think they'd have to pull this one out 4-2 or 4-3. I think to hold off the Rangers. Now at home, we'll see what happens. They haven't really played. They played 1, 2, 3 home games, so this is only their 4th home game out of 11 to this point, and they are 2-1. They just beat the Hurricanes at home 2-1 a couple days ago, and then they've got a 4-1 loss to Nashville and a 2-1 win to Arizona. So who knows what you might end up getting with New York back at home tomorrow night. I'm gonna go 4-2 Detroit. If they don't, it's gonna be like a 4-1 loss.
And give me your final thoughts, Ryan.
Final thoughts are they got to keep the momentum of the Boston win. You can't go out and beat a team like that. Now, granted, this is a hell of a stretch they've got coming up, so it's how you can mitigate anything too bad going on. Because you've got the Rangers, then you follow it up with the Canadiens, who have been a pleasant surprise probably for Montreal fans, and then you got the Blue Jackets and Sens, then Toronto. So there's a stretch here. God, this month is going to be brutal. Win the games you're supposed to win. Play well in the games against some of these top teams like the Rangers. I'll throw the Canadiens in for the moment. Senators, another game you need to find your emotion for. But then you get the Maple Leafs, Devils, Bruins, and Wild to close out the year, or the month, I'm sorry. Play them well. Don't shit the bed. Don't sit on your heels like we saw with Winnipeg, like we saw Boston, like we saw with the Panthers. If they're aggressive, this team can make things happen. They've just got to stick to that. So we'll see what happens, but it should be some fun hockey. Already around 33.
Ryan says, give him hell, Tyler.
Yeah, judging by what the Rangers have done, they're 8-2-1 so far to start the season. One of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, as we see. Their last game was a loss to the Minnesota Wild, who are not good right now, in a shootout. So could you get into a game like that? We'll see. I think the Wings win. I think it's a close game. I think it's like a 2-1 game because I know the Rangers have scored a lot this year, but for some reason I have a feeling Husso is going to play really well. I'm going to say 2-1 win, or maybe even 3-1 with the empty net. The Wings win on TNT. Final thoughts. Well, you have a gauntlet of a schedule coming up here. Can you just do the best that you can of managing the schedule and winning the games? I hate to sound like Ryan, but win the games you're supposed to, play as good as you can in the games you're not supposed to, and just let the chips fall where they may. We've talked about this, and we used to talk about this during the playoff streak and stuff. Just try and get, against the better teams like New York and a team like Toronto and a team like Boston. Can you at least get 1 point and at least continue the point streak? And when you beat a team like Montreal or beat a team like Columbus, take 4 points out of those possible 4 points. And then if you slip up against Toronto, okay, well, you got New Jersey, who is without Jack Hughes right now. So, I mean, you really just need to do the best that you can to get points out of all these games, whether it's 1, obviously, preferably 2. But that's kind of my final thoughts. I mean, you're going to have a game against the Rangers, who's a very good team, and then Montreal comes in on Thursday, and it doesn't get any easier Saturday with Columbus. I know everyone talks about Columbus as being kind of a down team, but they have a lot of good players still. So it'll be interesting to see, but you can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
Yeah, and you can follow me online. What, Ryan?
Anyone else see that the Lightning, after being up 4-1.
Oh yeah,
after the
yeah, they're
first
losing
against
now.
Toronto, is now currently losing 5-4.
Yeah, they're losing now. So
And
the
the Panthers
Fire,
were up 3-0 on Columbus, out shooting them 22-3 at one point, and are now losing 4-3 to Columbus.
hockey's a weird sport, man. If you go back, I looked at it the other day. I was just going through scores in the league, and the night that we played, here are the scores around the league the night that we played. 5-2, 5-3, 6-3, 6-4, 5-4, 6-4, 2-1, 5-0, 4-3, 5-2, 5-4, 10-2. Not even going to talk about the fucking Sharks. 7-0, the Knights beat the Avalanche. 2-0 and 6-3. Scoring is way up in the NHL. I like
Early
offense.
still.
I like offense, but there's been a lot of shitty defense and a lot of shitty goaltending. So it's a nightmare for some teams, and it looks like that the standings could get quite skewed here pretty quick. But you can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. You can follow Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. We give a shout out to the Hockey Podcast Network and thank them for hosting us and spreading us around. We also give a shout out to Vintage Detroit, which is the only place you should get your Detroit jerseys from and worked on. They're absolutely amazing. Go get the Adidas stuff before it's gone and Shitty Fanatics takes over. Please do it as quickly as possible. You never know until you're too late when that stuff is going to go away. We'll give a shout out to our merch shop. Go to redbubble.com and search the Grindline. All of our merch is there. Go sub to us on YouTube. And if you use the promo code Grindline on Howie's Hockey Tape, you get 10%. Same promo code on Bring Hockey Back, you'll get 12%. But that is going to do it for us tonight. So for Ryan and Tyler, I am Greg. You stay classy, Hockey Town.